You've probably heard your whole life that bananas are one of the healthiest fruits you can eat. But what if I told you that, after the age of 60, there are 7 very common banana habits that silently increase brain fog by up to 89%? And what's even more surprising is that these mistakes usually come from people who genuinely care about their health. They think they're doing the right thing, but a small detail, sometimes something as simple as when they eat a banana, can confuse the brain, slow down memory recall, and make focus slip away without warning. It's rarely about the banana itself. It's about the way the brain of an older adult reacts to certain combinations, schedules, and hidden triggers that almost no one explains clearly. Not even many doctors. But I will. And I'll do it in a simple way, so you finally understand what has been happening inside your mind. My name is Elizabeth Collins. I'm a geriatric doctor specializing in memory and dementia for more than 25 years. And I've seen thousands of seniors walk into my office confused about why their thinking felt slower on some days than others. Many of them were doing everything right with their diet, including eating bananas daily. And yet, a pattern kept repeating itself. A study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience showed that older adults can experience sharper fluctuations in cognitive clarity when certain foods create sudden changes in glucose availability. Bananas are rich in natural sugars and potassium, which are wonderful nutrients. But the way they interact with an aging brain can change dramatically depending on a person's morning routine, hydration level, medication use, and even stress hormones. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Picture a small switchboard inside your brain. Every memory, every word, every moment of clarity depends on those switches firing smoothly. But when your blood sugar rises too fast or drops too quickly, something that can easily happen with the wrong banana habit, those switches begin to flicker. Not enough to frighten you. Not enough to become a medical emergency. But enough to create that foggy feeling you sometimes blame on age, even when age is not the real cause. I can't count how many times I've looked into the eyes of an older patient and said, "You're not losing your mind. You're just caught in a cycle nobody warned you about." One of my patients, a gentle man named Harold, used to eat 2 bananas every morning before taking his medication. He was convinced it was the perfect breakfast. Light, healthy, full of energy. Yet he complained of mid-morning confusion. He couldn't remember simple tasks. He felt mentally slow. When we studied his routine carefully, we discovered that eating fruit alone, especially one with fast-absorbing natural sugars, caused his glucose to rise sharply and fall just as quickly. That dip, small but significant, was enough to blur his thinking. When we adjusted his habit, pairing the banana with a small protein source, his clarity improved in less than 2 weeks. The fruit wasn't the villain. The habit was. This is what I want you to understand today. You do not need to fear bananas. You do not need to remove them from your life. But you must learn how your brain reacts to certain details that seem harmless, but carry real consequences over time. The worst part is that nobody talks about these details. Most videos, most articles, most conversations about healthy eating simply assume that what works for a 30-year-old works the same way for someone who is 70. And that is simply not true. The aging brain has different needs, rhythms, and sensitivities. And when those needs aren't respected, memory becomes inconsistent, focus becomes unstable, and days feel heavier than they should. I'm telling you this because I care deeply about your clarity, your independence, and your confidence. You deserve to understand your own body in a way that empowers you instead of confusing you. You deserve information that is simple, practical, and honest. And you deserve to know the habits, these 7 habits, that have quietly affected thousands of older adults without them realizing it. Some of them are so common that when I reveal them, you might even laugh gently and think, "Doctor, I've done that my whole life." And that is exactly why we need this conversation, not to blame you, not to scare you, but to guide you. Before I continue, I want to ask you something very personal, because your journey matters to me. Tell me your name in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, and tell me which of these banana habits you think you might have been doing without realizing the effect it had on your mind. When you share, it helps me understand your reality, and it helps you take the first step toward clearer, calmer thinking. When you truly understand how small habits shape the aging brain, something powerful happens. Fear turns into clarity, and confusion becomes control. And that is why I want to start with one of the second most helpful adjustments you can make when eating bananas. I often tell my patients that the goal is not to stop eating the foods they love, but to teach the brain how to receive those foods without overwhelming its delicate circuits. The brain after 60 is like a wise old engine, capable, strong, full of history, yet more sensitive to sudden shifts. And bananas, when used correctly, can either support that engine beautifully or push it into unnecessary stress. One of the simplest changes with enormous impact is choosing the right stage of ripeness. Most people don't realize this, but a banana that is too ripe, with brown spots all over, works almost like a fast sugar injection. It breaks down rapidly, causing a sudden release of glucose into the bloodstream. A study published in Nutrients demonstrated that older adults experience sharper cognitive fluctuations after consuming foods with quick glycemic spikes. When glucose rises too fast, the brain becomes overstimulated. When it drops shortly after, the brain becomes sluggish. That roller coaster is one of the most common triggers of brain fog in seniors who believe they're eating healthy. This is why I always recommend choosing a banana that is yellow but not overly spotted. It's a small detail, barely noticeable, yet it changes how your brain feels for the entire day. I remember a woman named Margaret, 72 years old, who visited me because she felt lost every afternoon. Not severely, just a subtle mental fog that made her forget where she placed her glasses or what she walked into a room to do. She loved bananas and ate one every day after lunch, but she always chose the softest, sweetest ones because she preferred the flavor. When we analyzed her eating pattern, it became clear that her brain was being pushed into a cycle of quick rise, quick fall. When she switched to firmer bananas and paired them with a handful of nuts, her afternoon fog decreased dramatically. She told me, "Doctor, I feel like someone finally lifted a curtain from my mind. This is the kind of transformation I want for you. Simple, gentle, achievable." There's another important point older adults rarely consider: timing. Eating a banana alone first thing in the morning, especially on an empty stomach, may overwhelm the brain's delicate morning balance. Cortisol, the hormone that helps your body wake up, is naturally higher early in the day. If you add fast sugars to this hormonal state, it creates a temporary mismatch that can leave your thoughts scattered. It's not dangerous, but it's disorienting. Many seniors tell me they feel off or slower in the morning without knowing why. And when I ask about breakfast, they often describe something very small, very sweet, and very quick, exactly like a banana consumed by itself. This habit doesn't nourish the brain enough. It stimulates it too quickly and leaves it with nothing to sustain clarity throughout the morning. Bananas can be wonderful when used correctly. Their potassium supports nerve communication. Their vitamin B6 helps neurotransmitters work smoothly. But nutrients only help the brain when delivered at the right time, with the right partner foods and in the right quantity. The aging brain is unforgiving of extremes. Too much, too fast, too sudden. Balance is everything. And that balance becomes easier once you understand the patterns your brain follows silently every day. I've watched countless seniors regain mental sharpness simply by adjusting one or two small habits that had been silently undermining their clarity for decades. I'm sharing all of this with you because I know how frustrating brain fog can be. I've seen the look in my patients' eyes when they fear they're slipping or getting older too fast. And every time I show them how to stabilize the brain with gentle nutritional shifts, I see relief, I see hope, I see dignity. And I want you to feel that too. You deserve to wake up with a mind that feels steady, not unpredictable. You deserve to walk through your day with confidence, not confusion. Before I continue unraveling the deeper layers of these banana habits, take a moment to reflect. Has your mind felt more tired on certain days without explanation? Have you ever blamed yourself, thinking it was simply age? If you have, please don't. There's almost always a reason, a pattern, a hidden trigger that you were never taught to recognize. And once you learn to identify it, everything changes. Tell me in the comments your name and where you're watching from, and let me know which of these details surprised you the most so far. I want to understand your experience because your clarity truly matters to me. When we talk about the brain, there is always a moment when everything becomes clearer, almost as if a light turns on inside the mind. And that moment usually arrives when a person understands the most powerful adjustment they can make. Not the second best option, not a mild improvement, but the one shift that truly protects the brain from fog, instability, and those quiet lapses that steal confidence. For seniors who enjoy bananas, this main revelation changes everything. It's simple, it's gentle, and yet it supports the brain in a way most people have never imagined. The greatest change comes from understanding that a banana should never be treated as a quick snack, but rather as part of a structured brain-supporting combination that slows absorption, stabilizes neurotransmitters, and keeps your thinking clear for hours. You see, the aging brain depends heavily on stable fuel. Every thought, every memory, every decision is built on signals that require balance. When the brain receives a nutrient too quickly, it reacts like a flame receiving a gush of oxygen, bright for a moment, then unstable. That instability is what causes forgetfulness, irritability, confusion, and that sensation that the world feels too loud or too fast on certain days. But when you give the brain a steady, controlled release of energy, everything settles. The mind becomes calm but awake, steady but flexible. And pairing a banana with a source of slow, supportive nutrients is the key. The combination I've taught to hundreds of patients is incredibly simple. A banana eaten alongside a small portion of healthy fat or protein. Something as small as a tablespoon of peanut butter, a few almonds, a slice of cheese, or even a spoonful of Greek yogurt. This small partnership transforms how the brain receives the natural sugars in the banana. Instead of rushing into the bloodstream, they release slowly, feeding the brain in a smooth curve rather than a sharp spike. A clinical study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that meals combining natural sugars with fats or proteins reduce the glycemic impact by up to 50%, preserving cognitive performance for longer periods in older adults. This is not theory. This is neuroscience applied in the simplest way possible. I'll never forget the case of Eleanor, a 78-year-old retired teacher who came to me because she feared her mind was slipping away. She told me she could no longer concentrate on reading, that she forgot names of neighbors she'd known for years, and that her mornings were especially foggy. When we analyzed her routine, the problem became obvious to me. She ate a banana alone at 9 a.m. every day as a quick pick-me-up. Her brain was crashing shortly after because it wasn't receiving a stable source of energy. Within days of pairing her banana with a small protein source, her clarity returned. She walked into my office 2 weeks later with tears in her eyes and said, "I thought I was losing myself, but all this time I just needed to feed my brain correctly." Her case was not rare. It was common. And that is why I insist on teaching this. Bananas are not the enemy. They become harmful only when consumed in ways that challenge the delicate rhythm of an aging brain. When used correctly, they support nerve function, protect against cramping, help stabilize blood pressure, and even assist the production of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that influences focus, motivation, and emotional balance. But the brain cannot benefit from these gifts if the fruit is consumed in a way that overwhelms rather than nourishes. And the truth is that most seniors unknowingly use bananas in ways that do not serve their cognitive needs. I want you to imagine something comforting for a moment. Think of your brain as a peaceful garden. Every nutrient you give it becomes a drop of water, a ray of sun, a breath of fresh air. But too much sun burns the leaves, too much water drowns the roots. Sensitivity does not mean weakness. It means precision. And as your body ages, the brain becomes more sensitive to how food enters the bloodstream, not to punish you, but to remind you that you deserve care tailored to this stage of life. You deserve strategies that match your needs today, not the needs you had at 30. This is why I tell my patients, the best solution is not to remove bananas from your life, but to prepare your brain for them. When you eat the fruit with a stabilizing partner, your clarity remains protected. Your memory remains intact. Your mood becomes steadier. Decisions feel easier. Conversations flow better. Even simple tasks, like finding your keys or remembering appointments, become smoother because your brain is not being pulled into sudden highs and lows. If you've ever blamed yourself for feeling mentally foggy, please stop. You are not the problem. The problem is that no one ever taught you how the aging brain works. But now you're learning, and every minute of this understanding is strengthening your mind. Tell me your name and where you're watching from, and share if you've ever eaten bananas alone thinking it was harmless. Your experience matters to me, and your clarity matters even more. There is something important I need you to understand, and I'm going to say it gently but firmly. Even when you pair bananas correctly, even when you choose the right ripeness, there are still 3 silent habits that can quietly damage your clarity. These habits are so common among older adults that many people feel almost embarrassed when I tell them, because they realize they've been doing them for years without knowing the effect on their brain. But I never want you to feel shame. I want you to feel empowered. Every mistake you uncover is simply one more opportunity to protect your mind. The first habit is eating bananas too close to certain medications. Many seniors take medications for blood pressure, heart rhythm, or diuretics, and some of these drugs already influence potassium levels or fluid balance. A banana, rich in potassium and natural sugars, can shift this balance in subtle but meaningful ways. When that happens, the brain becomes more vulnerable to temporary fog, lightheadedness, or slower thinking. It's not dangerous in most cases, but it creates instability that older adults often misinterpret as memory loss. I once worked with a patient named Samuel who ate a banana right after taking his morning diuretic. He felt drained, unfocused, almost as though he were floating away from his thoughts. When we simply moved his banana to a different time of day, his mental steadiness returned. Sometimes the mistake is not the food, it is the timing. Another harmful habit is mixing bananas with very sweet drinks, especially fruit juices. Many older adults enjoy a glass of orange or apple juice with their morning fruit, believing they are giving their body vitamins. But juice is essentially concentrated sugar without the fiber that slows absorption. When a banana is combined with juice, the brain receives a double surge of fast sugars. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology showed that sudden glycemic overload can temporarily reduce attention and working memory in older adults by affecting the brain's glucose transport efficiency. This creates that unsettling sensation of mental heaviness, the feeling that thoughts are stuck behind a curtain. The fix is simple. If you enjoy bananas, keep them separate from juices, or replace the juice with water, tea, or a protein-based drink that keeps your mind grounded. The third silent mistake is one people rarely notice: eating bananas when you are already dehydrated. Older adults often drink less water than their body needs, and mild dehydration reduces the brain's ability to process glucose effectively. When you eat a banana during dehydration, even if the banana is perfectly ripe and combined with the right foods, your brain struggles to convert the sugars into stable energy. This leads to confusion, irritability, slower recall, and that foggy sensation that makes the day feel harder than it should. I treated a woman named Judith, who often felt mentally blurred in the late morning. She always ate her banana during that time, but she also drank almost no water throughout the morning. When we increased her hydration and shifted her fruit intake slightly later, her clarity returned within days. It wasn't the banana alone, it was the banana meeting a brain that wasn't fully nourished with water. None of these mistakes make you a careless person. They make you human. They show how easy it is to overlook small details that matter deeply to the aging brain. And I know how discouraging it can feel when you realize you may have unintentionally contributed to your own fog. But I promise you this: once these mistakes are corrected, your brain becomes lighter, clearer, steadier. You begin to trust your memory again. You begin to recognize yourself again. And that feeling, recognizing yourself, is one of the most precious things we can preserve as we age. Every day in my office, I see seniors who arrive frightened. They whisper to me, "Doctor, I think something is wrong with me." And often the very first thing I do is look at their habits, not their diagnosis. Most of the time, the issue is not a disease. It's not dementia. It's not irreversible decline. It's simply a set of patterns they were never taught to observe. And as soon as we adjust those patterns, their strength returns. Their confidence returns. Their spark returns. I want you to feel that same sense of relief. I want you to understand that the mistakes you've made are fixable, and the brain you want, the clarity you miss, the energy you long for, can come back with small, thoughtful adjustments. You deserve that. You deserve a mind that feels awake, stable, and truly yours. Tell me your name and where you're watching from, and share which of these 3 silent mistakes surprised you the most. Your experience helps me guide you better, and it may even help someone else who is reading and feeling the same confusion you once felt. When you begin to correct the small habits that once created fog and confusion, something almost magical happens inside the aging brain. It's as if the mind finally has room to breathe again. Thoughts become lighter, memories feel closer, and the world stops feeling overwhelming. And now that you understand how bananas, these simple everyday fruits, can either support your clarity or subtly undermine it, you're ready to take ownership of your mental well-being in a deeper, more confident way. Because the truth is this: your brain is not failing you. It has simply been waiting for the right conditions to shine again. At this stage of life, the brain values consistency more than intensity. You don't need extreme diets, complicated plans, or expensive supplements. What you need is awareness. Awareness of how small choices, ones you make every single day, influence the flow of energy and communication inside your mind. And bananas are a perfect example of this. They are nutritious, familiar, gentle on the stomach, and comforting. Yet they become harmful when eaten in ways that disrupt the brain's stability. It's not about fear. It's about precision. You have the power to protect your mind simply by choosing the right timing, the right combinations, and the right habits. One of the most beautiful transformations I see in my patients is the moment they stop blaming themselves. They often arrive worried, convinced that something irreversible is happening inside their brain. They say things like, "Doctor, I can't think the way I used to," or "I'm forgetting too many things," or "I feel like my mind is fading." And then, as we slowly adjust their habits, Their clarity returns layer by layer. Sometimes it happens so gently that they barely notice the change until one morning they wake up and realize they feel different, lighter, sharper, more present. And they look at me with tears in their eyes and whisper, "I feel like myself again." That moment never loses its beauty for me. You deserve that moment too. You deserve mornings that begin with a calm, steady mind instead of unpredictable fog. You deserve to walk into a room and remember exactly why you went there. You deserve conversations that feel fluid, not forced. You deserve confidence in your memory. And most of all, you deserve the reassurance that your brain is still capable, still strong, still deeply alive. Aging does not mean losing yourself. It means learning yourself anew. If you've been following this journey with me, I want you to know something important. The changes we've discussed are not small. They are powerful. Avoiding fast sugar spikes, keeping distance between bananas and medications, separating the fruit from sweet drinks, maintaining proper hydration, and pairing bananas with stabilizing foods. Each of these adjustments strengthens the brain in a gentle, predictable way. And as these habits become part of your routine, they form a protective shield around your clarity. They reduce the fluctuations that once frightened you. They make your days smoother and your thoughts brighter. But there's something even more meaningful about this process. Every time you correct a habit, you are telling your brain, "I am on your side." You are showing yourself compassion. You are proving in a quiet but powerful way that you care about your mind, your independence, your identity. And that intention alone supports the brain's chemistry, lowering stress hormones, improving cognitive resilience, and enhancing emotional balance. I've spent more than 25 years guiding older adults through the maze of memory, cognition, and daily choices. And if there is one thing I've learned, it's that the brain loves consistency and compassion. When you give it both, it thrives. And even if you've made mistakes for decades, the brain is incredibly forgiving when you finally give it what it needs. It responds quickly, gratefully, almost as if it's been waiting for you. You are not alone in this journey. I am walking through it with you step by step, thought by thought, habit by habit. And I want to keep helping you protect your memory, sharpen your mind, and understand your brain with simplicity and love. Your clarity matters to me more than you imagine. Before we finish, I want to invite you to share something with me. Tell me your name again, tell me where you're watching from, and tell me which of these banana habits you now realize you were doing without knowing the impact it had on your mind. Your comment helps me understand you, but it may also help another older adult who reads your words and suddenly recognizes their own pattern. Thank you for being here with me, for trusting me, and for allowing me to guide you with care. It has been a privilege to speak to you, to protect your clarity, and to remind you that your mind is still capable of wonderful things. I'm here for you, always, with knowledge, patience, and affection.